revealed how being thrown out of Christmas dinner led to an amazing bond with a stray dog. Charlie stood in his small garage, hands caked with grease, the faint aroma of motor oil like a second skin. The cold December air slipped through the gaps in the walls, wrapping around him like a chill reminder of the life he had built alone. The hum of tools grinded in rhythms he had grown accustomed to, a soundtrack to a solitary existence as a mechanic and a single father. Each revving engine reminded him of dreams once vivid but now dulled by the relentless grind of survival. His daughter Lily, with her sparkling hazel eyes, was all the motivation he needed, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that each day passed with a weightier burden on his shoulders. Christmas was nearing, and the idea of a warm family dinner flickered in Charlie's mind, an attempt to mend fences with his estranged parents. Was it foolish? Would they even care to come? He felt a blend of hope and dread knotting in his stomach. As thoughts of their past confrontations stung him anew, he hesitated while setting the table, visions of their bitter arguments encroaching. What if they expected more from him? What if they saw him still as that lost boy, the black sheep who never turned out right? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. When Charlie finally arrived at his parents' home, his heart was racing, the initial warmth swiftly extinguished by biting words from his father. "You're a failure, Charlie. Real men don't let their families down." Each word struck like a sledgehammer, chipping away at his already fragile self-worth. Numbness crept into his limbs as he stumbled out onto the porch, snow crunching beneath him. Shame clawed at his insides, and the chill air did nothing to numb the heat of tears threatening to spill over. He walked aimlessly through the neighborhood, haunted by shame and echoing judgment. What did it mean to be a provider? A father? He felt like the very definition of failure. As his breath fogged in the cold, his gaze fell on a scruffy dog hiding beneath a park bench, wide eyes glimmering with fear. Something familiar stirred in him. Was it loyalty or desperation? He named her Hope. In that moment, the warmth of their connection ignited a flicker within him that had long been absent. As days turned to nights, the bond between Charlie and Hope bolstered his spirits. Each engine he fixed, each meal he shared with Lily, became bursts of unexpected joy. Yet, as the days passed, an impending storm brewed around the unhealed wounds with his parents. One evening he lay outside, Hope curled beside him, when he caught sight of his father trudging down the street, the worn figure mirror-like to his own struggles. What was coming? Would this be a chance for closure, or merely a repeat of history, a fresh cycle of pain? With uncertainty tightening like a noose around his heart, Charlie felt the weight of years pressing down on him. The stakes felt higher than ever, but could he take a step toward confrontation when all he had known from them was disappointment? As he lay there, tension coiling around him, the flicker of hope waged a fierce battle against the dark memories, and the question burned in him. Could things ever change, or was he destined to remain lost in the shadows of his father's judgment forever? Charlie paced his garage, the scent of motor oil mingling with the sharp edge of unfulfilled expectations. The lingering hurt from the family dinner cast a shadow over each spark of inspiration he had while tinkering, turning tools into symbols of past potential. How many times had he allowed fear to dictate his choices? Each flinch from his father's words rattled the foundation of his faith in himself. He could no longer view the world through their narrow lens. The strife that had stained his childhood refused to define his future. Hope lay sprawled beside him, the weight of her presence grounding him. In her, Charlie saw resilience, a simple dog thriving against all odds. Her eyes, bright and trusting, reminded him that survival was, in essence, a choice. He had to confront his own instinct to flee whenever conflict materialized. As he readied the next engine for repair, he heard Lily laughing in the house and smiled. His little girl had become a beacon, illuminating the possibility of deeper connections, not just with Hope, but with others, including his family. That moment galvanized Charlie. It wasn't mere survival. It was about building connections worth nurturing, even if it meant facing the ghosts of his past. He grabbed his toolbox, thrusting the lid open with determination, each clink of metal urging him forward. He began planning ways to refashion their relationship, envisioning an honest conversation that could either reaffirm their ties or break the chains of bitterness that had long plagued him. His mind raced with possibilities when he caught himself. A familiar pattern threatened to emerge, self-doubt gnawing at his resolve. They had belittled him for years, and the lingering effects didn't vanish overnight. But if he didn't take this step, would he be choosing to remain suppressed in the dark corners of family judgment? If Hope had taught him anything, it was the value of trust, both in others and in himself. Charlie straightened up, a spark of determination flaring. He decided he had nothing to lose in addressing the chasm that had formed between him and his parents. What if he invited them again, but this time with a different approach? Instead of approaching them with the expectation of validation, he could simply express his desire for a connection, leaving the ball in their court. The day of the dinner, he found himself battling the old feelings of anticipation turned dread. But there was a new weight to his resolve, far stronger than the shame that had always held him back. He set the table with care, casual conversation drifting between him and Lily, who knew not of the brewing storm on the horizon. As hope wove through their legs, it occurred to Charlie that genuine connections required vulnerability. He was learning to shield himself from the destructive past while embracing the potential for growth. The doorbell rang, and as he turned towards the sound, his heart pounded. Would this be an opportunity for healing or the shattering of his newfound resolve? Just as he opened the door and saw his parents standing there, uncertainty flickered within him. His father's scowl was still present, but something else was behind it. Curiosity? Regret? The moment stretched infinitely, building pressure in Charlie's chest. He could still turn away, let the moment disintegrate like all the others, but then he recalled Hope's undeniable spirit. Charlie stepped outside, ready to confront the shadows of his past. The time had come to face the ghosts that had haunted him for too long. In that charged moment, a revelation washed over him. Perhaps the path to redemption wasn't in seeking their approval, but in embracing his own worth irrespective of it. The door loomed behind him, a threshold between his old life and one he could mold anew. Would he cross that line and break the chains? The decision laid heavy before him. Charlie took a deep breath, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. The universe felt as if it had converged around him, leaving him exposed and acutely aware of every detail. The trembling of his hands reflected the weight of his life choices, the choices of moving forward or resigning himself to the past. He pressed his lips together, anchoring his resolve as he looked into his father's eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked, the words finding their way through the tumult. His father's frown deepened, a hint of surprise flickering across his features, just long enough for Charlie to catch it. Was that a step toward understanding? Lily, oblivious to the tension forming like a tangible barrier, tugged at her grandmother's sleeve, chatting animatedly about her recent discoveries in the backyard. Her innocence acted as a soothing balm, pushing Charlie to break through the surface level of family interactions that often felt more like polite performance rather than genuine connection. "Let's sit," Charlie suggested, gesturing toward the dining room table. As they settled in, the heavy silence pooled around them, a palpable force. He could read the apprehension on their faces. Both parents shared the same uncertainty that bound him in knots. "I wanted to assure you both that I know I haven't been the son you expected," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "But that's not what I need from you anymore." A flicker of confusion crossed his father's face, mingled with the challenge of reconciliation. It was a pivotal moment, a chance to reshape his identity without the shadows of who they thought he should be. "I want to connect with you, to understand you better," Charlie continued, his own healing intermingling with a monumental shift in the room's energy. "Will you let me in?" His mother's eyes reflected an array of emotions, a mix of surprise and vulnerability. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could temper the entrenched differences and shift the dynamic. But how far would they be willing to go? Hope, instinctively sensing the wavering tension, wandered over, resting her head on Charlie's knee. The warmth of her presence filled the space, granting him the comfort to push through the uncertainty. As he petted her, he made another mental connection. It wasn't about them changing for him. It was about building a collective future rooted in acceptance. His father broke the silence. "We've always wanted what's best for you, Charlie." His tone softened, an unexpected break in his usual stern demeanor. A rush of defiance surged within Charlie. Was that a willingness to recognize the struggle he had endured? The confession ignited a flicker of hope. "What if what's best is to accept me as I am, instead of who you imagined I should be?" He felt the challenge in his words, an assertion of his newfound clarity. But seeking their validation still gnawed at him. Was acceptance truly on the horizon? The ghost of his past was unsettling, lingering around each fleeting moment of hope. His mother's response did not arrive immediately. Instead, a silence settled between them. In that stillness, Charlie realized it was no longer just about the words in the air. It was about the actions that would follow. Decision-making raged in Charlie's mind. Would they choose to fully engage or retreat behind familiar walls? He waited, breath held tight, determined not to push too hard. Perhaps this was the beautiful mess of healing, a fragile equilibrium teetering between acceptance and misunderstanding. And just as Charlie was about to lose himself in doubt again, Lily interjected with a bright smile. "Can we tell stories now? Stories where we all belong together?" The simplicity of her request cut through the tension like a hot knife through butter. All at once, Charlie felt a surge of purpose, choosing authenticity over fear. They were family, flawed yet bound by blood, and perhaps through shared laughter, they could find their way back together. Yet what would it take to forge that new bond? Was he ready for the reactions that lay ahead, particularly from his father? As each heartbeat thudded loudly in his ears, a sudden realization took root in his mind. The path to understanding would wrestle with the animosities that had always existed. The dinner had only just begun, and the conversations remained fragile, waiting to be shaped into something new. How much would they weigh the past, and was Charlie ready for the full spectrum of their responses? The moment of truth approached. Charlie could feel the anticipation building, a tension feeding off the nervous laughter and unguarded smiles. Lily's plea had ignited something powerful. The air felt different, charged with fresh hopes and hesitant resolutions. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat, tangled in a web of anxiety and a peculiar quest for validation. Forcing himself to inhale deeply, Charlie finally said, "How about we share something about ourselves, something we might not know about each other?" He looked first at his father, then his mother, both wearing expressions of confusion laced with curiosity. "Why would you want to know about my high school adventures?" his father retorted, a half smirk breaking through the veneer of skepticism. So stubbornly serious, but perhaps there was an inch of eagerness buried beneath that hardened exterior. Because understanding each other's past could help us understand who we are now, Charlie ventured. The stakes felt perilously high. Was he avoiding confrontation, or was he genuinely searching for a deeper connection? His mother leaned in slightly, her posture relaxing as the challenge intrigued her. "Okay, I suppose I can start," she replied, her voice softening. "When I was your age, Charlie, I used to keep a journal, I wrote every little thing that happened, my dreams, my fears. It was my secret haven. Charlie's heart skipped. He had always thought of her as perfectly composed, a standing pillar of control, never faltering under the weight of sadness or uncertainty. Yet here was a glimpse of vulnerability. Perhaps he had been too quick to pigeonhole her. "Did you ever find it?" he asked tentatively, most curious about how that young girl from the pages had shaped the woman before him. "It got lost," she confessed, a hint of regret coloring her tone. "Somewhere in the moves after your father and I got married. I thought about it often. All those words. They felt like a part of me." "Maybe it's still out there waiting for you to find it," Charlie offered, a quiet solidarity easing the distance he had felt. His father shifted uncomfortably in his chair, then crossed his arms defensively. "I used to write sometimes too, in class growing up. Worst part of me is letting everyone else shine. No one would ever notice if I never spoke. I thought it was better that way." The room became noticeably quieter as Charlie registered the revelation. His father's admission resonated far deeper than Charlie had expected. Could it be that his father had always been burdened by insecurity? Was that what fueled the strict expectations, fear of being outshined? "That's okay, Dad. You can try to shine now. We're here to support you," he said, vulnerability creeping into his own voice. "We all struggle to fit into a role." Lily, fully engaged in the storytelling atmosphere, broke in excitedly. "I want to share too. When I find a stray dog, I give them a name. They're all so lonely and like me, they just want a family. It's like magic." "Maybe that's the magic we're missing," Charlie mused, higher stakes than before illuminating the room. "What's a family if not accepting all the different parts of one another?" As silence enveloped the table, Charlie's mind raced. If his father could admit his insecurities and his mother could reveal her lost dreams, what would be next? Could he own up to his own fears regarding acceptance? The shifting dynamics felt volatile, yet hopeful. "Maybe we all need to find a way to connect better," he added, the resolve in his heart slowly surging, a phoenix rising anew. Just then, a knock at the door shattered the moment. Charlie's pulse quickened as uncertainty filled the space again. Who could it be? Would this be another test of his resolve? Throwing cautious glances at his parents, Charlie realized that embracing the unexpected would become essential in this evolution. As the door swung open, an unexpected presence entered, a harbinger of change waiting to reveal itself. What if answering this door could change everything he thought he understood about acceptance? The door creaked open, revealing a figure that could only be described as eclectic. A woman in her mid-40s, clad in a patchwork coat adorned with mismatched buttons, stepped into the room. Her wild hair, a cascade of curls threaded with twinkling lights, glimmered under the soft overhead glow. Behind her, a small but energetic dog bounded in, its tail wagging fervently, a ball of excitement that seemed to share the overwhelming sense of unfamiliarity. "Hello, everyone. I'm June," she announced, her voice buoyant, as though she had just arrived at a parade instead of interrupting an intimate family moment. Charlie's parents exchanged wary glances, unsure of how to process the sudden disruption. The dog darted around the table, sniffing at legs and chairs, clearly on a mission of exploration. June followed, her movements fluid, both chaotic and charming. "Oh, don't mind Jasper. He's just here to spread holiday cheer." She knelt down, inviting the pup to crawl into her lap. Charlie, caught off guard, felt a swell of curiosity rise within him. June's energy was infectious, altering the room's dynamics in a way that felt liberating yet daunting. Hi, June," Charlie managed, attempting to introduce himself and rein in the tension that had been mounting since the door swung open. "Charlie, right? I've heard so many wonderful things about you," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with genuine enthusiasm. "You know, I used to write as a kid, just like your mom and dad." She gestured animatedly, her hands painting pictures in the air. "But more importantly, I chased dreams. I chased them into every crevice and corner of this town." Charlie's skepticism melted a bit as June spoke. Her passion was tangible, filling the air with possibility. What had begun as a simple visit felt like a window into a more adventurous world. "What kind of dreams?" he asked, allowing his curiosity to lead him. "Ah, dreams of being free and wild, of living in harmony with all creatures great and small," she replied. "Like Jasper here, he's a wanderer at heart." The dog yipped, darting over to Charlie as though sensing his growing interest. As she continued speaking about her life on the road, collecting stories and bonding with strays, Charlie recognized something profound stirring within him. This woman, a stranger, at least for now, exuded a confidence and acceptance he had yet to fully embrace himself. Here, she was living her life out loud, unencumbered by the insecurities that had shadowed his father's admissions earlier. Reflecting on the conversations from moments before, Charlie felt a mixture of inspiration and envy. Why had he held back? Was it really fear of judgment? What did it mean to live authentically, surrounded by deeply ingrained expectations? Before he could loop himself into further doubt, June leaned in closer, her expression earnest. "You know, Charlie, we often struggle to find our place in the family we're given. But sometimes, the love and connection we seek mirrors the bonds we create outside of it. Have you ever thought about the stories you've yet to tell?" Her words pierced through Charlie's protective armor. They echoed deep in his consciousness, awakening a craving for authenticity that had lain dormant. He had been so fixated on finding acceptance within the confines of familial expectation that he had overlooked the potential for connection beyond them. As June continued to weave tales from her life, a rush of determination surged through him. He wanted to confront everything head-on, the fears of acceptance, the expectations, and the hidden parts of himself yet to be revealed. Before he knew it, he found himself offering, "I think I have some stories to tell, too." The room stilled, anticipation holding its breath in the charged air. But as he prepared to delve into his own truths, Charlie noticed the way his parents exchanged glances. He wondered if they were ready to embrace this unpredictable turn. Was this the moment when vulnerability would fully unfold for all of them? A sudden bark from Jasper pulled Charlie's thoughts back to June, who watched with eager eyes, ready to hear whatever he had to say. As Charlie prepared to share, it became apparent he was not just on the cusp of revealing secrets. He was about to discover the kind of acceptance that transcended critique, an acceptance he himself could instill within his family. But just as the moment began to build, another knock echoed at the door, silencing his pulse. What more could be thrown into this already tumultuous evening? Charlie's heart raced as he glanced toward the entrance, bracing for yet another unexpected twist. Would this next visitor push his revelations further, or expose deeper roots of conflict waiting to be unearthed? The moment hung in the air, electrifying yet fraught, as the knock echoed again. Charlie's pulse quickened, anticipation and trepidation coiling together tightly in his gut. June leaned back, a glint of mischief in her eyes, and Charlie couldn't help but mirror her curiosity. He hesitated. Would this new visitor tip the balance toward chaos or clarity? "Go check it out, Charlie," June urged, her enthusiasm audibly beckoning. Standing up, he took a few cautious steps to the door, compelled by a strange mix of dread and curiosity. Each step seemed significant. They were like a countdown to something he couldn't explain yet. The door opened to reveal a familiar face, his childhood friend Max, standing there with a sheepish grin, balancing a tray of cookies precariously in one hand. "Hey, I thought I'd surprise you guys," Max exclaimed, his eyes widening as they adjusted to the lively scene before him. Charlie felt a wave of mixed emotions. Max's arrival brought comfort, but it also triggered an avalanche of insecurities. Would Max accept this new version of him, this budding side of vulnerability he was trying to cultivate? Would he laugh at his attempts to open up? Charlie realized that the weight of his family's expectations had extended beyond their walls. They clung to his mind like a chorus of voices weighing him down. Just as he prepared to embrace this newfound openness, all the hesitation crept back. He stepped aside, allowing Max to enter and guide the agility of the unfolding evening. Wow, what a party. Who's this? Max pointed at June, who was still perched on the couch with Jasper nestled in her arms. I'm June, the wild storyteller, she announced exuberantly, her hands flicking animatedly as if casting a spell. You're just in time, Max. We were about to hear some stories. Max's face lit up with delight as he placed the cookie tray on the table. Stories? I'm in. As the moment slipped by, Charlie felt like he was on the sideline, observing rather than participating. June and Max were seemingly bonded by an impulse he didn't possess. The two of them joked and shared spontaneous tales about their encounters, while Charlie's heart seemed heavier with each laugh. But then June leaned closer, her gaze direct and penetrating. Charlie, what stories are you hiding? The room fell silent. It was as if every laughter vanished, leaving nothing but the stark urgency of the question hanging in the icy December air. He wrestled internally. Would he have to share? I have some things I want to say, Charlie stammered. In that moment, it became painfully clear that sharing himself was akin to plunging into the deep unknown. Would he find acceptance, or deeper fissures in the fabric of his relationships? Max's brow furrowed slightly, clearly sensing the tension. You okay, man? Charlie hesitated, grappling with the layers of his emotions. This was the kind of vulnerability he had been craving. The push from June steered him toward a revelation of his own, but with those words came fear. He could feel himself on the precipice of honesty. But another knock at the door interrupted him. His breath stalled as he exchanged glances with June and Max. What kind of disruption was waiting outside now? Charlie's resolve teetered on the edge. He was caught in a crucible. The next visitor could either derail his path to authenticity or fortify it even further. With a mental nudge from his growing courage, he moved toward the door again, ready to face the unfolding chaos. Who could possibly enter now, and how would they further ignite or dampen his journey toward acceptance? Charlie took a deep breath and opened the door, steeling himself for whatever awaited him. As Charlie opened the door, a splash of bright, shimmering curlicues clipped through the frosty air. The initial shock of seeing his estranged cousin, Ella, nearly knocked the wind from him. She stood there, her cheeks flushed from the cold, her limp fingers gripping a sprawling green scarf that looked like it had seen better days. Hey, Charlie, mind if I crash? She asked with a half-smile that belied a hint of uncertainty. Her presence was like a jolt. Electricity flickered between them, igniting an array of memories both fond and fraught. Once inseparable as children, their bond had frayed under the weight of misunderstandings and family estrangement. Would bringing Ella into the mix amplify the tension, or would it serve as a bridge to rekindling the connection he had been yearning for? Max stepped aside with an inviting grin, clearly eager to embrace the unfolding drama. The more, the merrier, he encouraged, as June's eyes narrowed, intrigued by this unexpected turn of events. Charlie's heart raced. He knew this was the moment to confront layers of conflict and vulnerability he had previously evaded. When Ella stepped inside, their eyes locked with an unspoken understanding. Thanks for letting me in, she said softly, just above a whisper. Charlie's mind swirled with reminiscences of shared laughter and childhood secrets, but an uncomfortable truth hovered just below. They hadn't spoken in over 2 years, since the day family feuds erupted at a Christmas dinner that had spiraled into disaster. He had painfully buried the fragments of that day, but here they were. The moment sat heavy between them, awaiting acknowledgement. Ella adorned the room with a hesitant kind of sunshine, her smile unwaveringly directed at June and Max. Yet, as she spoke of her current life, a subtle undercurrent of sadness punctuated her words. Charlie felt torn between wanting to shield her wounds and embracing his own journey toward honesty. Could they confront the past together? Ella, it's really good to see you, he began, the words tangling in his throat. I've missed you. The admission tasted bittersweet, fraught with implications of vulnerability. Their eyes held, and the ice began to thaw just a little. "Yeah, it's been a while," she replied, her voice steadying as if she was stepping onto a tightrope suspended over uncertainty. "I've been meaning to reach out. Just been hard, you know?" At that moment, Charlie sensed the simultaneous fragility of their situation and the opportunity for growth. They could plunge into painful memories or carve out a new path forward. It all hinged on what he chose to say next. Instead of retreating into the comfort of light banter, he leaned in closer, deeper into the heart of the matter. "I think we both have things we need to talk about," he said. An internal pulse thumped loudly as he felt the involvement of his vulnerability push him forward. "About that dinner." "I thought we'd never speak of it again," she interrupted, her tone defensive, yet revealing a flicker of pain behind her bravado. "It was awful. But I want to understand," he pressed, desperate to lead them both towards healing. Each word felt like chiseling away at the stone of unvoiced grievances. "What happened that day changed everything. But I think if we confront it, we might move past it. Together." Ella's eyes softened, and the tension shifted. The room's atmosphere underwent a subtle metamorphosis. The charged air began to swell with an unvoiced agreement, the shared realization that they were both caught in the murky waters of familial expectations and hurt. As the night progressed, Charlie began to see the connection forming not only between him and Ella, but also between him, June, and Max. Their stories intertwined, revealing layers of emotion he yearned to unveil. Each narrative act of vulnerability bridged the gap that had widened over years of silence. But just as Charlie began to feel the promise of a clean slate, there came another interruption, the faintest scratch at the door. A perplexed glance was exchanged among the four. Someone, or something, was determined to complete the picture of the night. With his heart hammering and anticipation building anew, Charlie took a deep breath, caught between the past and a future yet again on the cusp of unfolding. What awaited him this time was beyond what he could imagine. Would it solidify their bonding or challenge their new momentum? Charlie reached for the handle once more, uncertainty thrilling him forward. With a hesitant twist of the knob, Charlie swung the door wide open, revealing a small, scruffy dog standing on the doorstep. The creature's fur was a mix of browns and blacks, and its wide, uncertain eyes flickered between the group inside and the consuming darkness beyond. For a fleeting moment, the atmosphere of emotional intensity shifted from family tensions to shared curiosity. "Is that—" June moved closer, her voice barely a whisper laced with intrigue. Ella knelt down, her expression softening into nurturing instinct. "Hey, little guy," she cooed, her fingers extended cautiously toward the straggler. Charlie watched as the dog took a hesitant step closer, sniffing the air before nudging Ella's palm. Charlie sensed an unexpected wave of warmth wash over him. This scrappy interloper had disrupted the prior tension. The emotional scales teetered, now balanced by this creature's innocence. Wasn't that what he had been hoping for? A reconciliation that pushed aside the shards of resentment left from their past? As Max promptly hurried to fetch a bowl and some water, Charlie stood there, mulling over the significance of welcoming this unexpected visitor. The dog, nuzzling into Ella's hand, was more than a mere distraction. It was emblematic of a journey yet to be traversed. Just as this creature sought companionship and comfort, so too did he and Ella. "Maybe we're all a bit like him," he mused aloud, surprising even himself. Lost and looking for a place to belong. The admission felt raw yet liberating. Who would have thought that in this analogy he was exploring his own need for connection? Each glance exchanged in that moment held the weight of unarticulated truths. "What are you waiting for?" Ella turned to him, a twinkle of mischief in her eyes. "I think he's just waiting to be part of the family. Plus, he needs a name." Laughter bubbled forth, an unexpected tension-relieving surge. Charlie couldn't remember the last time laughter had punctuated the air between them. June joined in, half smiling. "Haven't you heard? They say animals can sense things we can't. If he's drawn to us, maybe he knows something." The simplicity of the dog's appeal punctuated the complexities of their situation. A collective decision atmosphere summoned Charlie's curiosity. Could this be a turning point? Would they sit cradled in their past or allow the chaotic beauty of the moment to usher in change? The dog, now fully claiming his space, explored the room with innocent enthusiasm. As Ella lavished her attention, showering the stray with affection as if it were a long-lost friend, a pull within Charlie amplified. Why had they not treated their relationship with the same fervor? What if this furry companion symbolized a spirit of acceptance, something they both desperately needed? As Charlie reflected on this, he felt the urge to act. Standing on the precipice of emotional vulnerability, he turned towards Ella. Words escaped without heed. What if we made this a fresh start? Not just for the newcomer here, but for us as well. Ella's eyes widened, revealing layers of hope wrapped in trepidation. "You really want that?" Her voice was steadier, insecurity fading with each word. "Absolutely," he affirmed, his pulse quickening in synchronization with the rising tide of possibility coursing through him. "There's too much left unsaid. Maybe the dog can be our catalyst for change, something to help us confront everything we've hidden away." "Then let's name him together," Ella smiled, shared purpose igniting a spark of excitement. "Deal," he nodded, a rush of determination replacing his earlier hesitance. With the fragile chemistry slowly solidifying, like the elements of their past, doggedly reassembling, Charlie felt a charge of urgency within. This moment could be the turning point, the beginning of revealing what he truly valued and where his heart lay. As they debated names for the dog, laughter filled the space like a warm embrace. Yet within him lingered a haunting whisper. Had they merely stumbled into a patch of light amid the shadows, or was it a foreshadowing of challenges still looming on the horizon? Just then, the phone buzzed, breaking their playful intent. Charlie reached for it, a knot tightening in his chest as he glanced at the incoming caller ID. It was his mother. Would she embrace this newfound connection, or would this call plunge them back into familial drama? The promise of the moment held its breath. Charlie's hand hovered above the screen, uncertainty swirling within him like a tempest. His mother's name glared back, a stark reminder of every unresolved conversation they'd put off for too long. He inhaled deeply, trying to steady the storm brewing in his chest. This was no longer just about the dog. This was about embracing the change he sought, about confronting the familial expectations that had stymied him for years. "Should I answer?" he asked, glancing at Ella, who still knelt by the dog, the corners of her mouth curling into an encouraging smile. "Only if you're ready," she replied earnestly, the warmth in her voice steadying his resolve. Here was a moment where he could choose to re-engage with his past or take a step back, but the thought of losing the momentum he'd just built felt unbearable. With a decisive swipe, he answered the call. "Hi, Mom," he managed to say, fighting the lurch of emotions rising to his throat. "Charlie, I didn't expect to hear from you. Are you coming for dinner?" The request contained both inquiry and subtle accusation, as if the distance between them had widened through silence alone. "No, I'm not," he replied, a fleeting sense of freedom painting his words in bold strokes. They were aligned with the new clarity he was forging in the moment. There was a pause, suffused with disbelief. "What do you mean, not coming? It's Christmas. Your family misses you." "That's just it, Mom. I don't feel like part of that family anymore." His voice sharpened slightly, revealing a side of himself that had lingered unaddressed for too long. He had always been the dutiful son, willing to bend to family dynamics, yet now he was confronting the rigidity with a newfound audacity. "Charlie, you're being dramatic," she sighed, the words heavy and habitually dismissive. "You just need to come home, spend time with your family." What family exactly? The question spilled out before he could gag it back. The one that treated me like a failure for not following in Dad's footsteps? Or the one that didn't understand my decisions? I've given enough, and I need to prioritize what matters to me now. An uncomfortable silence settled as Charlie felt the weight of his truth. The dog trotted up beside him, placing a comforting paw on his leg, and he instinctively scratched behind its ears, grounding himself. Here was acceptance without judgment, a partnership ready to bloom. "What are you doing right now?" His mother's voice reflected palpable distress, snapping Charlie back to the call. "I'm with Ella. We found a stray dog, and he's brought up a lot for me. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not." Charlie took a breath, his pulse racing with uncertainty. He had stepped onto a precipice, the act of voicing the truth to his mother, plunging him into uncharted territory. "Ella? As in Ella from high school? You're still seeing her?" A hint of shock colored her voice, the mix of disbelief and judgment palpable. "Yeah, Mom, I am. And it's good for me," he asserted, emboldened by the idea of worthwhile connections. "I'm trying to be honest about how I feel, and that starts with standing my ground." "Honesty isn't always the best policy, Charlie. You'll end up regretting it." The finality in her tone rattled him, but for the first time, he felt fortified within himself. "I'm not going to regret taking charge of my life," he said defiantly. "I need to find my path, with or without you." With a click, the call ended, leaving an echo of silence begging for resolution. Charlie turned to Ella, whose eyes reflected both concern and admiration. "I can't believe you said that," she breathed, her expression impressed yet wary. "It was easier than I thought it would be," he admitted, emotions tugging at the edges of his resolve. "But it only felt right because of this moment. With you and the dog." As he eyed the new companion now curled up contently at their feet, Charlie knew this wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was also about the promise of growth. Accepted connections, acknowledgement of wounds, a chance to embrace a future. These were no longer just wishes, but an emerging reality he was determined to nurture. Would his mother accept his decision? As uncertainty loomed ahead, a deeper question lingered in his mind. Was he truly ready to face the fallout of his choices, or would the challenges that surfaced from these revelations threaten to unravel everything he sought to build? Days turned into weeks, each moment filled with the vibrant energy of change forged in the fires of confrontation. Charlie felt lighter, untethered from the burdens that had once shackled him under his parents' expectations. Little by little, he conquered the self-doubt that had dogged him for years, evolving into a man whose spirit resonated with newfound clarity. The stray dog, now affectionately named Scout, had become a cherished companion. With every wag of his tail, Scout reminded Charlie that survival often hinged on forging connections, even with those we had previously overlooked or distanced ourselves from. He relished the daily morning runs with Lily, each stride forward reinforcing the bond between father and daughter, as well as his commitment to become the type of man he'd always envisioned, resilient and present. In the garage, Charlie transformed his workshop into a creative haven rather than merely a space of repair. Ideas flowed like oil through the gears of a well-maintained machine. The rhythms of wrenching metal became a symphony of accomplishment. Each car he worked on became more than a side hustle. They were stepping stones towards a more prosperous independent mechanic business that began to emerge from the shadows of mediocrity. A prominent local repair shop recognized his skill and offered him a mentorship opportunity to expand his business acumen. Charlie accepted, driven by the confidence he had cultivated alongside Scout and the love of his daughter. It was a chance to prove his worth to the world, not just to his parents, but to himself. Weeks passed, and the air vibrated with anticipation as an invitation for a family dinner arrived in the mail, extending an olive branch from his parents. It was a defining moment, a convergence of past and present. As he read the words, an undeniable sense of anxiety stirred in his gut. Would they still see him as the failure they had labeled him, or had the tides of change been enough to set a precedent for acceptance? "Lily," he called one evening while setting the table, "what do you think we should do about Grandma and Grandpa?" The question bore weight, woven with threads of hope and fear. "Invite them over here. Our house is fuller now, and Scout can welcome them," she beamed, unfurling her bubbly energy, innocent of the complex undercurrent stirring. Once again, the dinner table served as a stage for evolution. Charlie prepared a modest meal, encouraged by Lily's exuberance and the laughter that Scout incited as he frolicked with the family. The magic of acceptance was clearly at work. This time, Charlie wouldn't yield to the specter of judgment. He would embrace his worth irrespective of his past transgressions. When his parents arrived, he felt the familiar thinning of air, the habitual tension threatening to suffocate the atmosphere. Yet a quiet resolve bolstered him. This evening marked a chapter of reclamation. "Thanks for coming," he greeted, not extending an olive branch, but rather a gentle anchor. He was not only the man who had faltered in their eyes, he was a father, a mechanic, and a man who had persevered through hardship. Dinner unfolded, burdened with sweet engagement rather than the bitter exchanges of the past. Stories interwove between bites of homemade casserole as laughter danced between him, Lily, and Scout. Eventually, his father's gaze softened, suggesting the fragile possibility of reconciliation. "I see you've improved your cooking skills, Charlie. Maybe there's hope yet," his father finally stated, a glimmer of recognition shining through his words. Charlie leaned into the moment, grasping the fracture in his father's stoicism as a sign of acceptance. As the evening came to a close, Charlie decided to dive deeper. "Can we talk about what happened at that last dinner? It's been haunting me." He took the plunge. This was the moment of truth, the grand act of voicing discontent and hope for something more substantial as a family. Silence blanketed the room, thick and heavy, yet revealing presence and weight. His parents exchanged cautious glances. "You're right," his mother finally said, her voice uncertain but filled with an uncharacteristic vulnerability. "We need to start over, clarify what it means to be family." Charlie inhaled deeply, finally achieving the emotional freedom he'd sought all along. What embarked next was transformative, an open conversation, collectively traveling a labyrinth of their histories, fears, and desires to grow together beyond the shackles of expectation. Each response built bridges rather than walls, until at last the burdens began to lift, replaced by understanding. By the end of the night, it was no longer about family dinners colored by judgment, but rather filled with purpose and healing. Together, they forged a bond that embraced their respective imperfections while delighting in the power of vulnerability. Later that evening, as Charlie tucked Lily into bed, he looked back on the laughter and camaraderie shared this night with gratitude. No longer ensnared in the definitions imposed upon him, Charlie had achieved a profound realization. Acceptance begins within ourselves. He stood in the glow of the moonlight, feeling accomplished, his self-worth no longer dictated by the standards of others. He had become the architect of his future, complete with an expanding family of humans and the loyal Scout by his side, proving each step of the way that transformations, sparked by hope, do indeed pave the road toward meaningful life achievements. And while unknowns loomed around every corner, one thing gleamed brightly in his heart. He was no longer lost in shadows. He had illuminated a path toward success and acceptance both within and beyond the family unit. Charlie had not just mended fences, he had built a new home. So here's where you come in. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and not miss out on more exclusive emotional stories just like this one. Don't wait even one more second to share. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference in reaching more hearts, and I want to hear from you. Comment about your reactions and theories regarding this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of overcoming personal struggles. Together, let's spread stories of hope and transformation.